It was a bright and quiet afternoon in a suburban neighborhood where life seemed to move at its own slow pace. The streets were lined with trees that swayed gently in the breeze, and children played outside while neighbors went about their daily routines. Among them was a teenage girl, full of energy and life, riding her bicycle down the familiar streets she had known since childhood. She loved the feeling of freedom that came with pedaling fast, the wind brushing against her face and the sun warming her skin. Her laughter sometimes echoed in the air as she navigated turns and waved to familiar faces passing by. On this particular day, she was exploring a new path that cut through a less traveled part of the neighborhood. It was an area that had always seemed slightly off limits, with signs warning about private property. She did not mean to trespass. She was simply curious and wanted to see where the path led. As she rode, she kept her eyes on the ground in front of her, unaware that someone had been watching from a distance. A police officer, recently assigned to the neighborhood, had a reputation for being harsh and quick to judge. He had been in several minor conflicts with residents before, often due to misunderstandings or his own impatience. That day, he noticed the girl riding into the area he considered sensitive. His face hardened, and without thinking about approaching the situation calmly, he moved quickly toward her. Before the girl could even react, the officer shouted at her to stop. His voice was loud, commanding, and carried an edge of anger that startled anyone nearby. The girl froze, gripping her handlebars tightly, unsure what she had done to provoke such a reaction. She had only been riding her bike, and suddenly, she was confronted with a man in a uniform who looked ready to escalate the situation. The officer pulled out his gun and pointed it at her. The metallic gleam in the sunlight made her heart race, and for a moment she felt trapped and vulnerable. She raised her hands slowly, trying to show that she was not a threat, her voice shaking slightly as she asked why he was pointing a gun at her. His face showed no hint of calm or reason. Instead, his eyes were filled with suspicion and anger. He used harsh words, swearing and demanding that she get off her bike immediately. The tone made it clear that he saw her not as a child or a citizen, but as someone to be controlled and punished. Passers-by began to notice the commotion. A couple walking their dog paused, their expressions turning from curiosity to concern. Another neighbor looked out from her porch, pulling out her phone to capture what was happening. It was clear that the officer's behavior was extreme and uncalled for. Yet the girl remained calm, even though her heart was pounding in her chest. She knew panicking could make the situation worse. She spoke softly, trying to explain that she had not meant to enter the restricted area and that she would leave immediately if he allowed her to do so safely. The officer, however, seemed uninterested in listening. His focus was on control and intimidation rather than understanding. The girl could feel the fear in the air, not just her own, but from those who had gathered to watch. The tension was thick, and it seemed as if any small movement could trigger a dangerous reaction. Still, she kept her voice steady, her words simple and clear, hoping that reason might reach him. Time seemed to stretch as the officer continued to shout and gesture with his gun. Every second felt longer, and the eyes of the gathered neighbors followed every move. The girl's mind raced, thinking of how quickly a normal day could turn into something terrifying. Memories of previous news stories she had seen flashed through her mind, stories where misunderstandings escalated with tragic consequences. She reminded herself to stay calm and to keep her hands visible. Neighbors continued recording the incident, realizing the importance of documenting what was happening. One young man whispered to another that this could easily go viral, and they were right. The officer's actions were not just aggressive. They were shocking, especially in such a peaceful neighborhood. The girl's bravery in staying calm under such intense pressure was remarkable. Despite the fear, she tried to reason with him, asking again why he was threatening her and explaining that she was not dangerous. It was in those moments of chaos that the true nature of the officer's behavior became clear. His anger seemed to be fueled by more than just the immediate situation. There were undertones of bias and prejudice in the way he treated the girl. His assumptions about her, based solely on her appearance, revealed a mindset that had no place in law enforcement. The girl, aware of this, kept her composure, refusing to respond with fear or anger, which could have worsened the encounter. Eventually, after what felt like an eternity, the officer's demeanor began to change slightly, though not because of any conscious reflection. Perhaps he realized that the girl was not reacting with fear as expected, or perhaps the growing crowd made him reconsider his actions. Either way, the moment passed with the girl still unharmed, though deeply shaken. Her heart was racing, her hands trembling slightly as she held the handlebars of her bike. She slowly backed away, ensuring she did not make any sudden movements that could provoke him again. Once the immediate threat was over, the neighbors who had witnessed the incident approached her, offering comfort and support. They praised her calmness and quick thinking, acknowledging that her ability to remain composed likely prevented the situation from escalating further. Some offered to walk her home, while others contacted local authorities to report the officer's behavior. The incident had shaken the neighborhood, leaving residents questioning the presence and judgment of the officer. The girl returned home with her family, her hands still slightly shaking from the adrenaline. Her parents hugged her tightly, expressing relief that she was safe and also concern about what had happened. They spoke with her about how to report the incident and the importance of documenting everything, while also ensuring her safety. The conversation was filled with both reassurance and anger at the injustice she had faced. It was a moment that changed the family's sense of security in their own neighborhood, reminding them that even familiar streets could hide danger. That evening, the story began to spread beyond the immediate neighborhood. Social media posts from witnesses circulated rapidly, showing the video of the incident. People across the city reacted with shock, outrage, and support for the girl. The video was shared thousands of times, sparking debates about police behavior, accountability, and systemic bias. Comments poured in, many praising the girl for her courage and others condemning the officer's actions. It was clear that what had started as a small, tense encounter had now become a public matter, drawing attention from local authorities and media outlets. The girl, though overwhelmed by the attention, remained focused on her own sense of justice and safety. She understood that the situation was bigger than just her, that it highlighted broader issues in society. Her courage in facing the officer without responding with fear or aggression became a powerful example for others. Friends and neighbors continued to check on her, ensuring that she felt supported and understood during the aftermath. As night fell, the neighborhood that had seemed so peaceful earlier in the day felt different. The air was thick with the memory of what had happened, a reminder of the fragility of safety and the impact of prejudice. The girl sat quietly in her room, reflecting on the incident, thinking about how quickly life could change and how important it was to remain composed in the face of danger. She knew that the events of that afternoon would stay with her for a long time, shaping her understanding of courage, justice, and resilience. Even in her fear, she found a sense of strength. The encounter had tested her in ways she had never imagined, forcing her to face a dangerous situation with a level of maturity and calm that amazed even herself. Her experience that day became a story of resilience and bravery, one that would inspire others and contribute to a larger conversation about fairness, safety, and accountability in society. It was the beginning of a journey that would bring attention to injustice and ultimately, change. The moment the girl returned home, the incident began to take on a life of its own. Her parents, still tense from what had happened, immediately called the local police department to report the officer's behavior, making sure that every detail was recorded. They recounted the swearing, the pointing of the gun, and the way he had targeted their daughter simply because of who she was. The operator on the other end of the line listened, taking notes and assuring them that an investigation would be opened. The girl's younger siblings gathered around her, eyes wide and silent, sensing the fear and anger in the room. They didn't fully understand the situation, but they felt its weight, realizing that someone they were supposed to trust had behaved in a completely wrong way. Meanwhile, the video of the incident, recorded by a neighbor, had begun circulating on social media. Within hours, it had thousands of views. People reacted with shock, disbelief, and anger. Comments poured in from all over the city, condemning the officer's actions and praising the girl for staying calm. Many shared similar stories about encounters with law enforcement, and the post quickly became a hub for conversation about fairness, safety, and racism. News outlets began to pick up the story, adding their own interviews with witnesses and experts. The video's spread meant that what had happened in a quiet neighborhood now had the attention of the entire community. The girl watched the video of herself on a neighbor's phone. Seeing herself in that situation made her feel a mix of fear and pride. She was frightened by the gun and the harsh words, but she was proud that she had stayed calm and composed. Her parents reassured her, reminding her that she had done everything right. They encouraged her to remain strong and promised to support her through the process of reporting the officer and dealing with the media attention. As the days went by, the police department began their internal investigation. They contacted witnesses, reviewed video footage, and spoke with the officer involved. The officer, in his initial statement, tried to justify his actions, claiming that he felt threatened and that he was only doing his job. However, the video evidence clearly contradicted his account, showing that the girl had been calm, cooperative, and unarmed. The investigation quickly revealed that this was not an isolated incident. There were previous complaints about the officer's conduct, including allegations of bias and aggression. The girl's family received support from community members who were outraged by the incident. Local activists reached out to offer guidance, helping them understand the process of filing official complaints and seeking accountability. They also provided emotional support, recognizing how difficult it was for a young girl and her family to navigate this situation. The sense of community solidarity gave the family strength, showing them that they were not alone in their fight for justice. As news of the incident spread, it became clear that the story was resonating far beyond their neighborhood. National media outlets picked up the video, framing it as an example of the broader issues faced by Black citizens in encounters with law enforcement. Experts on police conduct and civil rights were invited to discuss the case, bringing attention to systemic problems and the need for reform. The girl's calm and composed response was highlighted as an example of courage in the face of intimidation, inspiring discussions about resilience and the importance of standing up for oneself. Social media continued to play a significant role in keeping the story alive. People shared messages of support, offered advice, and organized online campaigns calling for the officer to be held accountable. Hashtags began trending, encouraging citizens to demand justice and accountability from their local authorities. The girl, while overwhelmed by the attention, felt a sense of responsibility to continue sharing her experience and advocating for fairness. Her parents guided her through this, helping her understand the importance of using her voice in a safe and constructive way. The officer, aware that the video had gone viral and that the investigation was underway, started to feel the pressure. His attempts to justify his actions were met with skepticism and anger from the public. Statements from the department emphasized that misconduct would not be tolerated, and the officer was temporarily suspended pending the outcome of the investigation. It was a rare moment where the community felt that the system might actually respond to wrongdoing, offering a glimmer of hope amidst the anger and fear caused by the incident. In the neighborhood itself, conversations among residents changed. People discussed how they could support each other and ensure that such an incident would not happen again. Community meetings were organized to talk about safety, trust, and respect. Parents spoke with their children about how to interact with law enforcement safely, emphasizing the importance of remaining calm and documenting any incidents. The girl, while still processing her own emotions, participated in these conversations, sharing her perspective and helping others understand the reality of what had happened. The legal process also began to take shape. The family consulted with lawyers who specialized in civil rights and police misconduct cases. They reviewed the evidence, including the video and witness statements, and prepared to file formal complaints against the officer. The goal was not only to seek justice for their daughter, but also to send a message that abusive behavior by those in positions of power would not be tolerated. The process was lengthy and emotionally draining, but the family remained committed to seeing it through, knowing that their actions could help prevent similar incidents in the future. Throughout this period, the girl continued her normal life as much as possible. She returned to school, interacted with friends, and engaged in her usual hobbies, though the incident remained in her thoughts. Her friends were supportive, often discussing the event and expressing admiration for her courage. Teachers and school staff also provided guidance, ensuring she felt safe and supported within the educational environment. The experience, though traumatic, began to shape her into a stronger, more resilient individual, someone who understood the importance of standing up against injustice. The community's response remained strong. Local leaders spoke out, emphasizing the need for accountability and change within the police department. Social media campaigns continued to raise awareness, and people from across the city attended meetings and rallies to show support. The girl's story became a symbol of courage not just for her, but for anyone who had faced intimidation or discrimination. It highlighted the power of staying calm, documenting evidence, and seeking justice through proper channels. As time passed, the family noticed small but meaningful changes. The neighborhood became more vigilant, with residents looking out for each other and encouraging safe interactions with authorities. The police department, under scrutiny, promised to implement additional training and oversight to prevent similar incidents. While the incident itself could never be undone, the attention it received began to foster a sense of hope and progress. The girl, once a bystander in her own community, had become an active participant in shaping its future. Through it all, the girl learned important lessons about courage, resilience, and the power of a community standing together. Her experience, though frightening, had sparked conversations that extended far beyond her own neighborhood. It inspired others to speak up, to demand fairness, and to recognize that even small actions like documenting a situation or remaining calm in the face of fear could lead to significant change. The incident, once a source of fear, became a catalyst for awareness, accountability, and community action, proving that one voice could make a real difference. The investigation into the officer's actions began to take a more serious shape as more witnesses came forward. Each statement painted a picture of aggression and bias, and it was clear that this officer had a pattern of behavior that could not be ignored. The girl and her family were contacted regularly by investigators who asked for detailed accounts of the incident and for any supporting evidence, including the video and photos captured by neighbors. The family provided everything they had, knowing that these pieces of evidence were crucial for holding the officer accountable. The girl continued to experience a mix of emotions. Some days she felt fear and anger, remembering how close she had come to being harmed. Other days she felt empowered by the support and attention her story had received. She realized that what had happened to her was not just about one officer or one neighborhood, but part of a larger issue that affected many people. Her perspective began to shift from personal fear to a sense of purpose, wanting to contribute to change and awareness. Community members remained involved in the process. Meetings were organized in local centers, where residents discussed what had happened and shared their own experiences with law enforcement. Many were motivated by the girl's bravery, seeing her as a symbol of standing up against injustice. Parents spoke about how to educate their children on interacting safely with police, emphasizing the importance of remaining calm and seeking help when necessary. The girl occasionally attended these discussions with her parents, offering her viewpoint and helping others understand the real impact of bias and aggression. Meanwhile, the officer faced mounting pressure. Social media continued to highlight the story, with people demanding justice and accountability. News outlets followed up with interviews from experts in police misconduct and civil rights, further exposing the patterns of behavior that had allowed this officer to act recklessly. The officer's superiors were now under scrutiny as well, with questions raised about why someone with multiple complaints had been allowed to continue serving in the community. The public's attention created a sense of urgency for the authorities to act decisively. As the investigation progressed, legal advisors helped the girl and her family prepare for potential court proceedings. They explained how the process would unfold, what to expect during testimonies, and the importance of staying truthful and consistent in recounting events. The girl, while anxious about the upcoming steps, felt reassured by the careful preparation and the support of her family and community. She understood that the path to justice was not easy, but she was willing to face it for herself and for others who might experience similar situations in the future. One of the most significant moments during this period was when the girl's account was corroborated by multiple witnesses. Neighbors who had been outside during the incident confirmed every detail, from the officer's aggressive behavior to the girl's calm response. Their statements, combined with the video footage, created a compelling case that left little room for the officer to deny or minimize his actions. Each statement added weight to the investigation, reinforcing the need for accountability and consequences. The media continued to follow the story closely. Feature articles and interviews emphasized the courage of the girl, highlighting how her composure prevented the situation from becoming far worse. Analysts discussed the broader implications, examining how similar incidents often escalate and the importance of proper training and oversight in law enforcement. The girl's experience became a teaching moment, not just for her neighborhood but for communities across the region. It sparked conversations about the role of empathy, respect, and professionalism in policing. During this period, the girl also began to receive messages of support from strangers who had heard her story. People shared their own experiences, expressed admiration for her bravery, and offered words of encouragement. The volume of positive support helped her cope with the fear and trauma she had experienced. She realized that while the incident had been frightening, it had also connected her to a larger network of people committed to justice and fairness. Her family noticed how the experience was shaping her character. She became more confident, assertive, and aware of social issues. Her voice gained strength and she began to articulate her thoughts about fairness, equality, and standing up for oneself. The incident, though traumatic, was fostering resilience and maturity that would stay with her for years. Her parents, while still protective, felt proud of how she had handled the situation and how she continued to engage with the community constructively. The officer, facing a growing case against him, was now under serious internal investigation. His actions were being reviewed by multiple levels of the department, and his past record of complaints added to the severity of the situation. The internal affairs team worked diligently, conducting interviews, reviewing evidence, and preparing reports that would ultimately inform the decision about disciplinary action. The public closely monitored updates, eager to see whether accountability would be enforced. Community support remained strong throughout the process. Local organizations and activists offered resources, guidance, and encouragement to the girl and her family. They organized events to raise awareness about police misconduct and racial bias, ensuring that the incident was not forgotten and that meaningful discussions could take place. The girl sometimes participated in these events, sharing her experience in a controlled, safe environment, inspiring others and contributing to the ongoing dialogue about justice. As weeks passed, it became evident that the officer's position was untenable. Evidence of his misconduct combined with public pressure made it impossible for him to continue serving in the community without facing serious consequences. Discussions about policy reform and improved oversight gained traction within the department, reflecting a growing acknowledgement of systemic issues that needed to be addressed. The girl's case became a catalyst for these conversations, demonstrating the real-world impact of individual courage and community action. The girl continued to balance her daily life with the attention her story brought. She attended school, participated in hobbies, and spent time with friends, but the incident remained in her thoughts. She processed the trauma gradually, learning coping strategies and finding strength in the support around her. Her experience became a story of resilience, showing that even in moments of fear, it was possible to respond with dignity, courage, and clarity. Through the investigation, she learned more about how systems work and the importance of documentation, witness accounts, and evidence in seeking justice. She became aware that her actions and those of her family were contributing to a larger conversation about fairness and accountability. The experience, though difficult, was shaping her into a more aware and engaged member of her community. As the investigation reached its later stages, the officer's superiors prepared to make critical decisions. The evidence was overwhelming, the community had spoken, and the legal and social pressure was undeniable. It was clear that consequences were imminent, and the girl and her family watched closely, knowing that this chapter of the story was approaching a turning point. The resilience, support, and courage that had defined the past weeks would continue to guide them as they prepared for the next steps in the pursuit of justice. The day of the trial arrived, and the atmosphere was tense. Courtrooms are always places of formality and rules, but this day carried a heavy weight, a mix of anticipation and anxiety that filled every corner of the room. The girl and her family arrived early, dressed simply but neatly, their expressions showing both determination and nervousness. They were not just here for themselves, but for justice, for accountability, and for the message that wrongful behavior, especially by those in positions of power, could not go unpunished. The courtroom slowly filled with observers, journalists, and community members. Many were there to support the girl, while others were curious about the proceedings. Cameras were carefully placed to cover the case, ensuring the public could follow the events transparently. The tension in the air was almost tangible. The officer entered the room, his face set in a grim expression. aware that this trial would determine the course of his career and freedom. The contrast between the girl's calm demeanor and his anxious presence was striking. As the trial began, the prosecutor presented the case against the officer with clarity and precision. They outlined the facts of the incident, relying on witness statements, the viral video, and prior complaints that documented a pattern of misconduct. Each piece of evidence reinforced the narrative of abuse of authority and biased behavior. The courtroom listened intently as the events were described in detail, emphasizing how a young girl who posed no threat was subjected to intimidation and fear simply because of her appearance. Witnesses were called to testify. Neighbors who had seen the incident spoke honestly, describing how the officer had pulled a gun and treated the girl unfairly. Each testimony highlighted the bravery and composure of the girl, showing how she handled a frightening situation with courage. Friends and family members shared their perspectives, reinforcing the impact the incident had on their lives. The stories painted a complete picture, leaving no room for doubt about the officer's misconduct. The girl was asked to recount her experience. Standing confidently, she described the fear she felt, the sudden threat of the gun, and how she had tried to remain calm and comply. She spoke clearly and honestly, without exaggeration or embellishment, showing maturity beyond her years. Her words resonated deeply with everyone in the courtroom, highlighting the human side of the story, the feelings, the courage, and the impact of someone abusing their power. The officer's defense tried to argue that he felt threatened, but the video evidence and witness accounts directly contradicted this claim, showing that the girl had posed no danger at all. The officer's prior record was also presented. Complaints from previous incidents revealed a pattern of aggression and bias, adding to the weight of the case against him. This part of the trial was crucial, as it showed that his actions were not an isolated lapse in judgment, but part of ongoing behavior that needed to be addressed. The courtroom listened carefully, recognizing the seriousness of these repeated complaints and the potential danger posed by unchecked misconduct. As the trial progressed, the prosecutor emphasized the importance of accountability, not only for the officer but for the community at large. They explained that allowing such behavior to go unpunished would set a dangerous precedent, undermining trust in law enforcement and public safety. The girl's family watched closely, feeling a sense of hope as the case was presented with thoroughness and integrity. The trial was not just about punishment. It was about restoring trust and ensuring that no one else would have to face a similar situation. The officer took the stand to give his testimony. His demeanor was tense and his answers often conflicted with the established facts. He attempted to minimize his actions, claiming fear and stress as justifications. However, the courtroom remained focused on the evidence. The video clearly showed the girl's calm response. The witnesses confirmed her behavior, and prior complaints highlighted his consistent pattern of misconduct. His explanations fell flat, failing to convince the jury or the public observers who were following the trial closely. Throughout the trial, emotions ran high. The girl felt nervous, but she remained composed, drawing strength from the support of her family and the community. Her parents were quietly proud, knowing that she was handling the situation with remarkable bravery. The presence of neighbors and activists in the courtroom reminded her that she was not alone, and that the pursuit of justice was a collective effort. The energy in the room was a mix of seriousness, empathy, and the shared understanding that the outcome mattered greatly. The defense team tried to shift blame, suggesting that the incident was a misunderstanding, or that the girl's behavior had somehow contributed to the officer's reaction. But every attempt was met with the overwhelming evidence against him. The video, witness statements, and prior complaints all painted a clear picture. The jury listened carefully, taking notes and asking questions when necessary, ensuring they fully understood the severity of the officer's actions and the impact on the girl and her family. The trial also highlighted the community's role in ensuring accountability. Social media documentation, bystander recordings, and the support of neighbors proved essential in building the case. It demonstrated the power of collective action, showing that when people stand together and speak up, justice can be pursued effectively. The girl's courage, combined with the community's vigilance, became a central theme, illustrating the human strength in facing and addressing injustice. As the trial neared its conclusion, closing arguments summarized the facts, emotions, and broader implications. The prosecutor emphasized the need for consequences and the importance of reinforcing public trust in law enforcement. They spoke about fairness, safety, and the message that abuse of power could not be tolerated. The defense, despite their efforts, could not counter the compelling evidence and testimonies that demonstrated the officer's misconduct. The jury retired to deliberate. The courtroom emptied gradually, leaving the girl and her family reflecting on the journey that had brought them here. Weeks of fear, anxiety, and community support culminated in this moment. The girl felt a mixture of hope and apprehension, knowing that the decision could significantly affect both her life and the broader community. Her parents comforted her, reminding her that no matter the outcome, her bravery had already made a difference and inspired many. Finally, the jury returned. The foreperson stood and announced the verdict: guilty. The courtroom erupted in a mix of sighs, quiet celebrations, and emotional relief. The officer was found guilty of misconduct, intimidation, and racial bias. Justice had been served, and the decision sent a powerful message that abuse of authority and discriminatory behavior would not be tolerated. The girl, though still processing the emotions of the day, felt a profound sense of validation and relief. The support she had received, the careful documentation of the incident, and her composure had all contributed to a just outcome. The aftermath of the trial was a mix of reflection, healing, and community pride. The girl and her family were recognized for their courage and resilience. Local media highlighted the story, emphasizing the importance of standing up against injustice and the impact of individual bravery. The community continued to rally around her, organizing events and discussions about fairness, accountability, and safety. The officer faced legal consequences, including potential imprisonment, and the department pledged to implement reforms to prevent similar incidents in the future. Through the trial and its outcome, the girl learned invaluable lessons about courage, justice, and the power of community. She realized that even in moments of fear and danger, staying composed and seeking support could lead to meaningful change. Her experience became a symbol of hope and resilience, showing that one voice, backed by truth and determination, could make a real difference in the pursuit of justice. After the verdict, life slowly began to return to a sense of normalcy for the girl and her family, though the impact of what had happened lingered. There were days when memories of the incident surfaced, bringing flashes of fear and anxiety, but they were tempered by the knowledge that justice had been served. The guilty verdict had not only held the officer accountable, but it also sent a message that abuse of authority and racial bias could not be ignored. The girl felt a sense of relief, knowing that her courage and composure had helped achieve this outcome. The community continued to support her and her family. Neighbors, friends, and local activists visited regularly, sharing stories, offering encouragement, and discussing ways to ensure that similar incidents would not happen in the future. The girl began to participate in these discussions more actively, sharing her experience and helping others understand the emotional and psychological impact of such encounters. She realized that by speaking openly about what had happened, she could inspire change and educate others about their rights and responsibilities. Schools and community centers organized awareness sessions on safety, bias, and respectful interaction with law enforcement. The girl occasionally attended these sessions, not as a victim, but as someone who had gained insight and perspective through her experience. Her calm and thoughtful explanations resonated with others, showing that even young people could contribute meaningfully to conversations about justice and equality. Her voice became a tool for positive change, helping her peers understand the importance of standing up for themselves and others in difficult situations. The girl's family also noticed changes in the neighborhood. Residents became more vigilant and supportive of one another, keeping an eye out for potential threats and ensuring that everyone felt safe. The local police department, now under scrutiny, implemented additional training and oversight to prevent similar misconduct. Officers were educated on bias, proper conduct, and de-escalation techniques, creating a safer environment for all residents. The girl felt a sense of hope that her experience had contributed to meaningful improvements in her community. The officer faced his sentence, which included imprisonment and permanent removal from law enforcement. His colleagues and former supervisors expressed regret for not addressing his behavior earlier, acknowledging that the failure to act had allowed harm to occur. The girl and her family were aware of the complexities of the legal system, but they also recognized the importance of accountability and the role it played in restoring trust. Seeing justice carried out reinforced the belief that wrongdoing could have consequences, no matter the position of the individual involved. The girl herself grew stronger as a person. She became more aware of her surroundings, more confident in her ability to navigate challenges, and more committed to fairness and justice. Her experience had taught her resilience, patience, and the importance of using her voice responsibly. She also developed empathy for others who had faced similar situations, understanding the fear, frustration, and courage involved. This empathy guided her interactions with friends, classmates, and community members, helping her become a role model for others. The media continued to cover her story, but the focus shifted from the incident itself to the broader lessons it provided. Journalists highlighted the importance of community support, the effectiveness of documenting incidents, and the impact of standing up against injustice. The girl's story inspired articles, discussions, and interviews that encouraged awareness and action in communities far beyond her own. Her experience became a symbol of hope, showing that even in moments of fear, individuals could create positive change. Her family took steps to ensure that their home remained a safe and nurturing environment. They spoke openly about the incident, helping each other process their emotions and understand the broader implications of what had happened. They emphasized the importance of resilience, empathy, and support, reinforcing the idea that personal growth often emerges from challenging experiences. The girl found comfort in these conversations, understanding that she was not alone in her journey and that her family's love and guidance would continue to support her. Community leaders and local organizations recognized the need for ongoing education and reform. Workshops, seminars, and public forums were organized to discuss bias, safety, and accountability. The girl occasionally participated, sharing her story and encouraging others to speak up and seek justice when necessary. Her perspective was valued, and her courage inspired adults and peers alike to consider the broader impact of their actions and the importance of protecting vulnerable members of the community. Over time, the girl began to reflect on how the incident had changed her life. She recognized that fear and danger could appear unexpectedly, but she also understood the power of calm, thoughtful action. Her experience had given her a unique insight into human behavior, empathy, and the importance of standing up for what is right. She felt proud of how she had handled the situation and grateful for the support she had received from her family, neighbors, and community. The neighborhood, once shaken by the incident, gradually regained a sense of security and trust. Residents were more engaged, vigilant, and supportive of one another, creating a safer and more connected environment. The local police department continued to implement reforms, focusing on bias training, proper conduct, and community relations. These changes, though incremental, were meaningful, demonstrating the impact of accountability and advocacy. The girl and her family felt reassured that their actions had contributed to lasting improvements. The girl's story also encouraged others to document and speak out against injustice. The awareness generated by her experience led to discussions about rights, safety, and fairness in schools, homes, and public spaces. She became a quiet but powerful advocate, using her story to educate others and foster understanding. Her resilience, courage, and calmness became a guiding example for those who faced challenges, showing that it was possible to confront fear and achieve justice. As the months passed, life returned to a more peaceful rhythm, but the lessons remained. The girl continued her daily activities, pursuing her hobbies, attending school, and spending time with friends, while carrying the wisdom and strength gained from her experience. She understood that life could present unexpected challenges, but she also knew that courage, preparation, and support could help overcome even the most difficult situations. In the end, the girl's experience became more than a story of fear and injustice. It evolved into a story of courage, resilience, and the power of community. Her actions, combined with the support of her family and neighbors, had led to accountability, reforms, and awareness that extended far beyond her neighborhood. The officer faced consequences for his actions, and the community had grown stronger, safer, and more united. The girl's journey demonstrated that standing up for what is right, even in the face of fear, could inspire change and leave a lasting impact on the world around her. After the trial and the officer's conviction, life slowly settled into a new rhythm for the girl and her family. The experience had left a deep impression on them, and they were determined to use what they had learned to improve their community and their own lives. The girl, once shy about speaking up, began to find her voice in small but meaningful ways. She understood that her story had power, and she wanted to make sure it continued to inspire positive change. The girl started by talking to her classmates at school. Teachers encouraged open discussions about safety, fairness, and standing up for oneself. She shared her experience, explaining how she remained calm during the incident and how important it was to seek help and document events if something unfair or dangerous happened. Her classmates listened intently, some surprised at the courage she had shown at such a young age. Her story became a teaching moment, showing that one person's bravery could influence many others. At home, her family noticed her growing confidence. She asked thoughtful questions about laws, fairness, and rights, showing an awareness beyond her years. The parents supported her curiosity, discussing complex issues in simple ways that she could understand. They encouraged her to continue engaging with her community and to learn how to advocate for justice safely. The girl began to see herself not just as a victim of an incident, but as someone who could contribute meaningfully to the community's well-being. The neighborhood itself continued to change. Residents became more vigilant, watching out for one another and ensuring that everyone felt safe. Community meetings were held regularly, focusing on issues of safety, equality, and respect. The girl sometimes attended with her parents, sharing insights and ideas about what could be done to prevent similar incidents. Her perspective, coming from direct experience, was valued and respected. The community began to see the incident not just as an unfortunate event, but as a turning point for positive change. Local organizations and activists maintained their involvement. They invited the girl to participate in workshops and discussions about bias, law enforcement accountability, and civic responsibility. She was initially nervous, but over time she grew comfortable speaking in front of groups, using her story to educate and inspire others. People from different parts of the city reached out to learn from her experience, seeking advice on how to handle similar situations safely. Her courage became a beacon for others who faced fear or discrimination, showing that resilience and composure could create meaningful impact. The girl also began writing about her experiences. She kept a journal where she recorded her thoughts, feelings, and reflections on what had happened and how it had affected her. Writing helped her process the trauma and understand the lessons she had learned. Over time, her writings became more organized, and she considered sharing them more publicly to help others. Her reflections included themes of courage, empathy, and the importance of community, turning her personal story into a guide for others. Her parents encouraged her to balance advocacy with her normal life. They emphasized the importance of school, hobbies, and friendships, reminding her that she was still young and that her well-being mattered. The girl learned to navigate both worlds, sharing her story and working for change while still enjoying ordinary life moments like hanging out with friends, riding her bike, and reading. This balance helped her grow into a well-rounded, resilient individual who could face challenges without being consumed by them. Community leaders recognized the long-term value of her story. They organized events highlighting positive examples of resilience and courage, using her experience as a case study. Police training sessions included lessons on bias, empathy, and de-escalation, incorporating insights from her story to make the lessons real and relatable. The girl's voice had an unexpected but powerful influence on law enforcement practices, showing that one person's experience could ripple outward to create systemic improvements. The girl also began to connect with other young people who had faced difficult situations. Online and in person, she shared strategies for coping with fear, documenting incidents, and seeking support. Her interactions were honest, thoughtful, and empathetic, showing that she understood the emotional complexity of these experiences. The connections she made provided mutual support, helping others feel less alone and reinforcing her own sense of purpose. The family continued to receive attention from media and advocacy groups. Interviews, podcasts, and community features focused on her journey, highlighting how she handled the incident and how it led to meaningful change. The girl, guided by her parents, learned to navigate public attention safely, using it as a tool for advocacy without allowing it to overwhelm her. She became a quiet but influential figure, inspiring others through her courage, thoughtfulness, and resilience. Over time, the girl noticed personal growth in herself that extended beyond her initial experience. She became more confident in decision-making, more aware of social issues and more committed to helping others. Her empathy deepened, allowing her to understand perspectives different from her own while also advocating for fairness and equality. These qualities became part of her identity, shaping her interactions, her friendships, and her sense of responsibility within her community. The neighborhood continued to improve as well. Residents organized safety initiatives, neighborhood watches, and community building events. The police department, now under closer oversight, focused on improved training and accountability. The girl's story remained a reference point for these efforts, serving as a reminder of why vigilance, fairness, and community engagement mattered. Her courage had sparked a chain reaction that led to tangible, positive outcomes. The girl also developed a sense of hope for the future. She began imagining ways she could continue making a difference as she grew older, considering careers in advocacy, law, or community service. Her experience had shown her the importance of standing up for what is right, of using evidence and composure to face challenges, and of relying on the support of others. These lessons became a foundation for her aspirations, guiding her toward a life focused on justice and empathy. Throughout this time, the family remained close-knit, supporting each other emotionally and practically. They celebrated small victories like community initiatives inspired by the girl's story, and recognized the importance of nurturing resilience and well-being. The girl's parents were proud of her growth, noting how she had transformed a traumatic experience into a force for education and positive change. The entire family had grown stronger together, united by courage, empathy, and a shared commitment to justice.